Welcome to Wildly Capable with Kate, a podcast made for those looking to unleash their wildest capabilities. I'm your host, Kate DeRocher, a dating, relationship, and self-worth coach on a mission to help people build better relationships, starting with the one they have with themselves. In each episode, we'll dig deep, turn inwards, and embark on a transformative journey. Together, we'll break free from unhealthy patterns, rip through self-limiting beliefs, heal past wounds, and build unwavering self-worth, all to create healthier relationships as a result. Get ready to explore the wild, untapped potential within you. Are you ready to see just how wildly capable you are? Subscribe now and join us on this empowering adventure. Remember, your wildest capabilities await. Ladies, are you having a hard time finding a man who's ready for commitment? Well, this episode is for you. Hi everyone, welcome back to Wildly Capable with Kate. I'm your host, Kate DeRocher, and I'm a dating, relationship, and self-worth coach who's on a mission to help you build better relationships. And of course, one of the biggest things that I get asked and the biggest topics that comes up is why commitment seems to be so difficult nowadays. In the past, our grandparents committed to the first person they dated, the person who lived down the street, their family friend, and it was pretty easy and a lot of them stayed together. So why does it seem so much harder today? I'm going to break down why it seems as though men today in society, in this world today, seem to be so afraid of commitment. And of course, let me also say that it can be said for women too. So anything I say can be said interchangeably, but I'm just going to focus on talking about men since I am a woman and since a lot of my viewers and my audience and clients are women too. So why are men so afraid to commit? Let's talk about it. Before I explain why it seems as though men are so afraid of commitment today, I want to first tell you about a retreat that I'm hosting this Labor Day weekend in Dripping Springs, Texas. The Wildly Capable Women's Retreat will be held August 30th through September 2nd, and it's going to be filled with so much growth and transformation. The retreat is for women ages roughly 25 to 40 who are ready to step into their true capabilities, into who they were created to be. I'm going to walk you through so many intensives around self-worth, relationships, building better relationships, attracting healthier people into your life, and the idea of becoming a wild woman, which is a woman who knows and owns her power and is unapologetic about it. The weekend is going to be so full of healing and adventure and meaning, and I would love for you to be a part of it. I only have 3 spots left, so if you are interested, head to my website, coachkatederocher.com, and use code RETREAT at checkout for 10% off as a thank you for listening in to the podcast. I would love to see you there. Please snag your spot today. We only have a couple weeks before the retreat actually kicks off. So join us and I'll see you in Texas. Okay, you guys, let's be real. I honestly talk to people almost every single day, whether it's friends or clients, who feel as though it's impossible to find a man who is ready for what they are. Whether he is emotionally unavailable, or he's still playing the field, or he has Peter Pan syndrome. It seems to be extremely common nowadays, where men just aren't ready for what women are. As we know, women do develop quicker than men. It is scientifically proven that we actually develop at an earlier age than men do. Our emotional awareness and our emotional capacity develops sooner. So it makes sense that women are ready for commitment. They're ready for something serious earlier on than men are. But still, that doesn't account for the fact that it seems as though commitment overall in today's world is harder to come by than it was in the past. So why is that? And why does it seem like men especially struggle with it? Let me start by saying that if you are a girl who's listening to this and you are struggling with finding a man who is ready for what you are, I get it. I was you. I dated so many emotionally unavailable men that I actually thought that a man who wanted marriage and wanted to settle down didn't exist anymore. I also lived in LA where there's this kind of the grass is always greener mentality. Like there's always something better around the corner. You're just one swipe away from somebody hotter, more successful, whatever it is, like more aligned, better for you. There's this mentality across the world, everywhere, but especially in big cities like LA or New York, where you can always find better. You can always do better. There's always somebody better around the corner. So living in LA for 12 years, I really, really came to believe that that was just a reality, that there were no men who wanted a wife anymore, who wanted full commitment, or who maybe did a little bit just because it served them. But when it came down to the hard stuff, that's when they bounced. Why is this? What about commitment seems harder today than ever before in the past? I'm going to give you 5 common reasons as to why I see that people can't seem to commit the way that they used to. We're going to break them down. We're going to make sense of them. And I hope that it gives you some comfort to know that A, you're not alone. Other people are experiencing this kind of deficit of commitment too. But B, that there are still people out there who are looking for the same things you are. There are still people who want one and only one partner, who want to be married and stay married. That still exists. So this episode is to help you understand what's going on and to give you hope at the same time, because I'm a testament to that. I went through emotionally unavailable man to emotionally unavailable man to dead-end relationships, another dead-end relationship, even unhealthy abusive relationships, one after another. But today, after rewriting my narrative, taking control of my thoughts, healing my mindsets, breaking free from my old patterns and not letting my old wounds hold me back, today I'm engaged. And I'm engaged to a man who is just as committed to me as I am to him, who's just as committed to walking through the inevitable difficulties that will come with a relationship and with our future marriage. There will be hard moments. Life will throw us curveballs. Things will get hard. But I trust that Bobby is just as committed to working through them as I am. So men who want commitment, men who are ready for these things, absolutely still exist, girls. No matter what you've been shown in the past, I promise you that it is out there. There may just be something that's going on internally that's causing you to attract men who are still unavailable, who are either emotionally or quite literally physically unavailable. Maybe there's something going on inside of you, a pattern, a belief, a mindset that's keeping you stuck in attracting those men. That's something you and I can explore together if you're interested in coaching. If you are, you can just head to my website, coachkatederocher.com, and fill out my coaching application. And then together we'll dive into what may be going on internally that's bringing those sorts of men into your world. But I'm not going to talk too much about that today. Today I want to talk about mainly what causes men to be afraid of the next step, of the big final commitment. Like, where is that fear coming from? The first reason I want to talk about is that they may have some highly avoidant tendencies. So I've talked a lot about attachment styles on this podcast, about how there is secure attachment, anxious attachment, and avoidant attachment. But what I see most commonly, the dynamic I see the most with my clients and in my own life, is that the woman tends to be anxious. She is going towards the relationship, towards the person, towards the man, and the man tends to be more avoidant. Now, that is a big generalization. Of course, there are different dynamics at play, but a lot of times what I've seen and experienced is that men tend to be more avoidant. They are afraid of commitment. It's not just that they don't want it, it's that it genuinely scares them. The same way that somebody with an anxious attachment genuinely feels truly so scared of losing the person, a person with an avoidant attachment genuinely feels terrified to their core of getting closer to a person. We both desire it, we both want it, but we have different reasons for our fears. For somebody who tends to be more avoidant, getting close to somebody feels terrifying because in the past when they did, especially with their parents and early caregivers, they were taught that they couldn't rely on somebody else. The other person didn't show up, they left, they abandoned them, and so they learned to depend solely on themselves to a point where it's become kind of like a crutch, almost unhealthy, because they are so independent, because they fear relying on somebody else because they've been shown that they can't in the past. And again, this is just a generalization because I've seen women also be extremely avoidant too. I have a dear, dear friend, a woman who really struggles with being avoidant. Like, conflict is terrifying for her. She wants to just shut down and leave. When the relationship seems to take another step towards commitment, it freaks her out and it takes her a lot of time and internal work to not run away. You know, that's her default because that's what she was taught in the past that she had to do to protect herself. So anybody with avoidant tendencies, commitment it's just overwhelming. It feels gross. It feels scary. It feels like it's way too much. You can't get past it. So oftentimes men, because they are told they can't have their emotions and they need to be the strong ones. And a lot of times we have men who were raised by men who are completely emotionally shut down. Those guys, the guys in our generation, now believe that they can only rely on themselves. They can't rely on somebody else. They have to be independent. They have to take care of things themselves. And that forms a really intense avoidance within them. So commitment can be very scary for somebody who was raised that way or who's been hurt in the past because it's not safe for them. It's not safe to get closer to somebody else. So there's a true fear that's happening when it comes to avoidant tendencies. And that's one of the first and biggest reasons that I see as to why men are so afraid of commitment nowadays. Extreme avoidance is actually something I've experienced numerous times with different men I've dated, where I knew they cared about me. I knew they wanted to be with me deep down, but the actual act of being with me, of taking the next step in the relationship, of growing more emotionally intimate with me, of working through the hard things with me, it just was too scary for them. It just was too hard. They hadn't healed their internal avoidant tendencies to be able to understand that that's even what was happening. So they would blame it on me or come up with excuses and they would run away. And oftentimes I would blame them running away, them leaving, on me. I thought I wasn't good enough. I thought they didn't like me enough. I thought so many negative, hurtful things towards myself without remembering that it takes two to party. So something was also going on internally for that person too. And that's sometimes the case. Other times they just aren't interested and they think somebody else will be a better fit, and that's okay. But I think very often us women blame ourselves when a man can't step up to commitment because we think that we were the problem. We think we did something or we weren't good enough or we weren't pretty enough. But so often in reality, it's that we were, but the man just hadn't worked through his own traumas and fears and avoidance to be able to sustain that relationship. So if you've encountered this before too, I absolutely want you to hold yourself accountable for your own role in things, anything you did that maybe pushed the relationship away or didn't make it as healthy as it could be. But at the same time, I want you to show yourself compassion, because a lot of times what's happening is that there's a lot of junk going on for the other person that's clouding their ability to commit to you. And that has nothing to do with you. That's their own internal struggles, their own internal fears, their traumas coming up, their patterns and wounds coming up that you can't change unless they are willing to grow on their own and for themselves. It doesn't matter what you do or how pretty you are or how much you help them understand what's going on. It won't matter until they are ready to see and do that work for themselves. So release yourself a little bit from the pressure here, from the blame here, and see that avoidance can be a big reason as to why men are not ready for commitment, why they can't step into commitment. The second reason I see for is why men tend to be more afraid of commitment nowadays than before, and more so than women, is because of the social circles they run in. So I started this podcast by talking a little bit about Los Angeles and the dynamics that played there. And now that I live in Austin, Texas, where yes, of course, there's still some similar things happening, but it's a state and an area that is more inclined to get married earlier, to have relationships, to stick with relationships. I can see just how big of a role my previous environment was playing on my dating life. It is true that 30 years old in LA is very different than 30 years old in Austin. 30 years old in LA, and I'm kind of joking and it's just a generalization to illustrate what I mean, but 30 years old in LA is like being 25 for a guy. 30 years old in Austin is actually being 30. And roughly 30 is like a rather normal age for somebody to get into a committed relationship or engaged or married. Of course, everybody's timelines are different and there's no right or wrong, but because of the environment that they're in, 30 can seem so much younger in one city than it does for the other city. And that's because LA and big cities like it are full of people who are moving there to pursue something. They're moving there for a dream, for their dream. And so when it comes to giving and committing a part of their lives to somebody else, there's kind of this selfishness or this unwillingness that can come into play because they're so focused on themselves. Again, generalization, not everybody is like that. I actually met my fiance in LA, so a real illustration that it's not always like that, but oftentimes it can be. It breeds Peter Pans. It breeds men who are not ready for commitment, for the hard work that a relationship takes. It breeds men who just want it easy and want to focus on themselves and build what they want in their own lives. And then when they have the career and the finances and things like that figured out, then they start to look towards a relationship a little bit more. But they believe that they have to have those things figured out before they can be with somebody, instead of understanding that you can actually go farther, faster with the right partner. So you can actually be building those dreams, building those finances, building that career while you are with the partner, and with the right person, it will only enhance that too. On top of that, in big cities, there is this kind of illusion of options. And I've talked about this before in previous episodes, where since there are so many people there, and they're often like the most beautiful people you can imagine, you get into this mindset, and I'm guilty of this, of believing that there's something better, there's something more. You can always find somebody hotter, wealthier, more successful, because you have so many options around you. Not to mention dating apps, which quite literally allow you to just scroll through people as if you're window shopping for a dress or an outfit, and not remember that these are real people, people with their own quirks and their own flaws. And the grass is not always greener with that next best person. The grass is greener where you water it. But people forget that in big cities, where there is the illusion of options constantly at their fingertips. And of course, who they surround themselves with also plays a huge role in how they feel about relationships and whether they are ready for commitment or not. If all of their friends are single, or even worse, if their friends are really playing the field and being players and just kind of chatting to a zillion women at once, that will probably turn that man into something very similar. You are the lump sum of who you surround yourselves with. So if a guy is surrounded by a bunch of men who believe that marriage is the end of your life and it's terrible, and being in a relationship just means being whipped and tied down, then probably that guy's going to feel that same way. It takes being exposed to a different type of person, a different mindset within that type of person, to get somebody to see, oh, maybe there's different ways of thinking about these things. Maybe there's more than one truth that could be present. So for any women listening to this, if you are starting to get to know a guy, or you are starting to date somebody, I would advise you to look at their friends and figure out kind of what their attitude towards commitment is. If they are not anywhere near ready for commitment, maybe that guy isn't either. Or at the very least, he needs to start to build better, healthier friendships. So your environment, who you are around, where you live, it actually does play a role in whether men are or are not ready for commitment. Again, not every man, but it's kind of an overarching theme that I have seen in the different cities I've lived in, and all the women I've talked to who are in those cities. They've experienced a lack of commitment, and this is one of the reasons why. Next, and I've touched on this a little bit, it goes back into the avoidance issue that I was talking about. But a lot of men just don't actually know how to sustain a real relationship, because they have been avoidant in the past, because they have walked away from commitment in the past. They haven't built the muscles that are needed to maintain a relationship. And like I always say, relationships are hard. A relationship, the right relationship, will become a mirror for you, and you will be faced with your own shortcomings, your own flaws, your own limiting patterns and beliefs over and over and over again, because you have somebody right in front of you at all times, reflecting back to you those things within yourself. And as a result, relationships get hard. We get frustrated with ourselves. We take it out on the other person. We don't know how to handle our own patterns, our old wounds. They come up in relationships. And if you and that person, that man, haven't built the muscles to work through those difficult things, to be able to be self-aware and hold yourself accountable, to be able to come together and work through conflict and communicate in a healthy way, then commitment will be off the table. Like a real lasting long-term commitment will not be possible. These are skills that have to be built for commitment to happen. Dating, relationships, conflict management, communication, they are skills just like any other. Just like you have to learn how to throw a baseball better, or learn how to ride a bike better. That's a skill that you have to build with practice. So is being in a relationship and sustaining a relationship. You have to learn the skills that it takes to manage conflict properly, to communicate clearly, to work through things with one another. It's a muscle that you have to build. And if a man hasn't built that muscle, then commitment is not only so terrifying for him because he doesn't know how to tackle the difficulties that come with commitment, but it just won't even be possible. He may really, really want to be with you. He may really want to take that next step, but his own limiting resources and skills will hold him back from being able to do so. And until both of you build those skills, commitment is going to be an uphill battle. Commitment means choosing somebody over and over and over again every single day, even when you don't feel like it. Do you really think that every second of the day I am completely infatuated with my fiance? Like, no, we have hard moments. We go through difficult times, and there's times where I'm so annoyed with him or I'm so frustrated with him. But because I have built the muscles of commitment, of sustaining a real relationship, I get through those fleeting moments. I'm able to remain committed. But it took me time to get here. It took him time to get here. We had to really develop our own self-awareness, our own ability to hold ourselves accountable, and our ability to work through hard things. So the third reason for why I see commitment being harder today than it was in the past is because they do not know how to sustain a real relationship. They don't have the muscles needed. Before we keep going with breaking down why men may be afraid of commitment today, I want to tell you all about something I just started doing called breakthrough sessions. So breakthrough sessions are a 2-hour phone call where you and I will dive deep into whatever you're struggling with when it comes to dating or relationships or self-worth. We will really get to the root of what's going on, and then together we will figure out where to go from here, how to work through those things in the best way possible to create better, healthier relationships for you. A breakthrough session is an amazing option for any of you listening to this who aren't quite ready for a full coaching program, but who know that something needs to change. Like, you know, something is not working in your dating or relationship life. You know that you don't love yourself enough, that you don't value yourself enough, that you can't seem to work through conflict properly, whatever it is. You know something needs to change and are ready to make those changes, but just not ready for a full commitment, for a full coaching program. If that sounds like you, a 2-hour breakthrough session is exactly what you need. You and I will get on a video call and we will dive deep. We will get to the root of things and we will build you back up from there. So if you are interested, head to my website, coachkatederocher.com, and under the events tab, you will see a link where you can purchase a breakthrough session. I would love to meet you. I would love to help you work through these things. So let's do it. Let's get to work. Head to my website, coachkatederocher.com, choose the breakthrough session, check out, and then I will reach out to you to set up a call. I can't wait. The next thing that may be holding a man back from commitment is their own past traumas and wounds. The things that happen to us throughout our lives in childhood, middle school, high school, as we graduate, as we continue to get older, some of those things are difficult and they leave a mark on us. And unless we have healed those wounds, we will carry them into relationships. It is inevitable. So the fear of rejection, the fear of not being enough, the fear of failing in a relationship, the fear of being unlovable, all of those things are just as real for men as they are for women. And those wounds that cause those fears can hold a man back from opening himself up to being truly vulnerable and committing to somebody. Again, it's terrifying if you haven't worked through those wounds. You were terrified of falling short, of the relationship ending, of somebody rejecting you, of somebody breaking your heart, leaving you, a woman breaking up with you. Those fears come up and they prevent men from taking that next step of commitment, of being fully ready for a real relationship. So often it is their own internal traumas that haven't been worked through that hold them back. And I know that's true for so many women listening to this too. That was true for me. I was so terrified of being left that I would push every man away as hard as I could, subconsciously, to see if he would stay. But oftentimes that led to the relationship ending. So my own past traumas that I hadn't worked through, they prevented me from experiencing the commitment that I thought I was ready for and that I knew I wanted, but clearly wasn't fully equipped for it just yet. I had to heal those wounds before I was ready for true commitment. And the same goes for anybody listening to this, any man, any woman. Our past traumas will hold us back from a true lasting relationship unless we address them both before we start dating and in the relationship. because you can do a lot of work to heal your past wounds while you're single. But I promise you that when you are in a relationship, they will come up even more. So you're going to have to keep healing them with each other and within yourself going forward. So past traumas play a huge role in why commitment may seem so unattainable for some men, but it is something that can be healed absolutely just through some internal work, through hiring a coach or a therapist and diving into whatever happened, processing it, releasing it, and not carrying it into your future. And last but certainly not least of reasons as to why I see men are afraid of commitment is because they fear losing their freedom. Men are hardwired to really want to be autonomous. They are the provider and the protector. And so that means that they have to be able to rely on themselves to at least a certain degree. But it is the men who believe that autonomy is their only option, the only way they should operate, that can't step into commitment. It is good to be independent to a point, but the men who are so focused on their own independence, who really value it like to a fault, those are the men who fear that a woman will take it away. They are the ones who see marriage as the dead end. Your life ends then. Being with a woman means being totally tied down. You can't hang with your boys anymore. You can't have your own life anymore. I mean, how often do we hear that narrative in movies or just in our guy friends talking to one another? Like, that is a common narrative because they have valued their independence too much, instead of understanding that with the right partner, with the right woman, you will feel true freedom. It will be a freedom like what you haven't had before. Like, yes, when you are single, you are free. You don't have to worry about anybody else's feelings or emotions. You can just focus on yourself. But when you are with the right partner, what you will experience is being given the freedom to fully explore who you are, to fully explore your dreams and your passions without anything holding you back. You will have somebody to fall back on if those things get difficult, if they don't work out. And it gives you the ability to go out into the world with more confidence and more strength because you know you're good back home. So being in the right relationship creates a different type of freedom, and it is a beautiful type of freedom that really does trump the independence that comes with being single, the independence of I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, without anybody telling me otherwise. Yeah, that's a form of freedom, but true freedom is in love. Love sets us free. So I encourage any man listening to this to maybe start to see your autonomy in a different way and see that somebody else, the right person, a healthy person can fit into that no problem and actually even enhance it even further. Okay, ladies, those are the 5 reasons as to why I see men struggle with commitment so much. I hope that those reasons help give you some clarity as to what may be going on in your own dating life or even in your own relationship with a man who might not be ready for the next step or who's pulling away from you. It's not always because you did something or you're not good enough. It's just not true. There are so many other reasons that may be at play. So I hope it gives you some comfort and some understanding. And I hope that my story has given you some hope to know that there are still men out there who want exactly what you want. There are still men who are so emotionally available and ready for commitment, and they're longing for it just as much as you are. If you're really stuck in believing that that doesn't exist anymore, then this is where it becomes your responsibility to heal that narrative, to heal that mindset. Because as I've said a million times, what you think becomes your reality. So take control of those thoughts. Hold yourself accountable to the negative mindsets that you've perpetuated for too long, that you've become stuck in. Start to change your narrative, start to believe something different. Take those thoughts captive and then see how much more you're able to attract an emotionally available man into your life. I had to do that work myself. I had to really break through those old mindsets, and it worked. I found my partner. It didn't happen overnight. I still was met with a lot of emotionally unavailable men, but I had to learn to remain hopeful and to believe that there were still so many great things, so many great men out there to be able to attract him in. Had I continued to believe that men were all bad, none of them want commitment, they're all Peter Pans, they just want to play the field and date numerous women, had I stuck true to that narrative, had that formed a belief inside of me, I would have never been open or available or ready for something else. I had to heal that mindset within myself to attract what I was looking for. And the same can be said for you. So you do play a role in this. Take control of your thoughts, hold them captive, replace them with something positive and beautiful, but also know that there may be something happening when it comes to the men who are not able to commit to you that has nothing to do with you. A lot of times it is their own fears, their own wounds, their own self-limiting beliefs that they have to heal too. Takes two to tango, like I said. So both people need to be working on whatever is going on internally so you can then come together and form the most beautiful relationship possible. Thank you all so much for listening. I hope that this just gives a new way of thinking, a new perspective, some more clarity around the topic of commitment. And I hope it gives you some comfort if it's something that you're struggling with, either yourself or you can't seem to attract somebody who's ready for the commitment you are. I hope it gives you some comfort. Remember, if you are interested in my Wildly Capable Women's Retreat, head to my website, coachkatejerosha.com. Use code RETREAT at checkout and you'll get 10% off. And then I will see you this Labor Day weekend. It's coming up so soon. So snag your spot immediately and I'll see you there. And if you're interested in coaching, I'm now offering breakthrough sessions, which is a 2-hour intensive session. We'll get on the phone, we'll get on a video call, and we will really dive deep into whatever you're struggling with to help you reach your goals in a more condensed and purposeful way. Head to my website, sign up, check out, and then I will set up a call with you to actually hold your breakthrough session. And if you're ready for more long-term coaching, if you really want to dive into what your old patterns and mindsets are, if you're ready to heal those wounds that are holding you back, again, head to my website, fill out my coaching application, and then I will reach out to you to see if we are fit to work with each other. I can't wait to meet you all. Thank you so much for listening and tune in here next week on Wildly Capable with Kate.